Wonder is looking at the outside of something and saying, what does it look like? Empathy is standing on the inside of something and saying, what does it feel like? People are really scared of purchasing design, scared of being wrong. There is no creative process where you're not going to experience that like trench of despair. Until the camera existed, it was very important that you had realistic painters who could paint your portrait. And then all of a sudden that whole thing was gone. What didn't happen is art ceased to exist. What happened is the goalposts of art moved. It became about, okay, but now can I paint a feeling? I am super uninterested in whatever OpenAI are doing. What I'm interested in is what are all the vibe coders doing? Like iPhone changed the world. You know what really changed the world is like PayPal, Instagram, Uber. It's all the things that were built on the platform that made it transform society and daily life.
Welcome to Product Fridays, everybody. I'm Andrew McGill.
I'm Andrew Phelps.
And we have a new guy on set.
I'm not Andrew Somerville. I'm David Somerville. It's great to be here.
And not only are you David Somerville, but you are the first non-Andrew to join Product Fridays. I hope you feel a sense of honor and accomplishment.
Well, when does this episode drop?
In the next 1 to 9 weeks, depending on when we can edit it. Yeah.
I've sent in the paperwork for a legal name change to Andrew. So depending on when it drops, I may actually be Andrew by the time it lands.
Well, can I say the honor is ours then?
Yeah.
We're grateful. Thank you for being on our television show, David. It's great to see you.
Thrilled to be here. Literally been watching since episode 1. Big fan of you guys and what you're doing. So yeah, I'm just stoked to be on.
Well, tell you what, I think I was the original David friend. You were, I believe, basically in charge of digital design at The Atlantic. You eventually moved up to be in charge of everything, it felt like. You were making the covers yourself, literally, at one point. You're now running your own company, your own design company. And I've always loved how creative you were, how down you were to play in the space. And also how down you were literally to play because you are also a game designer, which still blows my mind. I want to hear about your creative process. You are constantly coming up with new sketches, new doodles, new fully blown products, new things for clients. Like, are you just working all hours of the day? Do you ever sleep? How do you make time for this in your life?
It's a great question. I definitely sleep. I definitely am not always working. There have been times when sort of during my most fertile periods, I would be getting up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. and just cranking. I think that, there's the idea of morning pages, sort of like working before your internal judge has clicked on. We have a sign over our kitchen that says Slow Mornings Club. So we're taking it slow in the morning, spending time together and then getting to work. But I think that actually helps the creative practice. Like, I think for me, something I think a lot about is this axis that we experience as humans between wonder and empathy. And sort of the idea that wonder is looking at the outside of something and saying, like, what does it look like? And empathy is standing on the inside of something and saying, what does it feel like? And so the idea of sort of cultivating empathy in your relationships, but being able to look at any given project and saying, what does this feel like from the inside? And then what does it look like from the outside? And sort of moving between those poles creates this really interesting, fertile, creative space. So for me, I feel like a lot of the times when I'm exploring an idea, I'll have an idea in the shower like anybody, and then I'll be like, oh, what would that look like from the outside? And then what does that feel like from the inside? And I wouldn't say that's like a conscious creative practice that I do, like a formal, I'm filling out boxes, but I think that's the best description I can give of how I sort of churn through new creative ideas.
You and I did a project late last year with Georgetown University, where we were helping build out a new publication called Science Politics. Basically, you built that brand from top to bottom. And I think the coolest exercise you did was this thing called the brand deck, where you basically had the founders like go through a series of this or that choices.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that
Andrew's got it right there.
There it is. You got the NSFW.
The brand deck is amazing. I forgot that I got that from you, David.
I think that so often we put ourselves in these boxes of sort of very traditional exercises, very safe exercises. We have a lot of fear-based decision-making as business leaders, and that goes to like how I'm spending my time too, right? Like I have to maximize every moment, and just entering that playful, curious space really unlocks ideas that you wouldn't normally get to. I was working recently with some mutual friends of ours on their business and just had a little workshop with them and simply did the 5 whys exercise where you just I asked them to tell me what their business did. And then I asked why. And then they told me that. And then I asked why. And we kept asking that 5 times. And by the end, we got to this thing where it's like, because like the universe is chaos and there's only one way to bring in order. And it was just like, now we're saying something interesting. And now let's let that energy percolate up through everything else. And I think there's consultants get a rap of sort of like these like toys or sort of like goofy exercises. And I, always want to be respectful of everyone's time. But I do think that sort of posing interesting questions in a way that activates a different part of your brain gets to better, more exciting results.
If I may ask a question, so Andrew and I are about to take on a couple of interesting projects and could use your guidance. And I imagine you could relate to this. There are projects you step into where no one really knows how to arrive at the solution. And the creative process unfolds, and sometimes the outcome is unexpected. There are projects that Andrew and I take on sometimes where the client's got a pretty good idea of what they want to go build.
Yeah.
And sometimes like a little too well formed for how early in the process it is, even though it's actually very smart thinking. How do you approach that kind of creative problem where someone has an idea for the thing and it may or may not be the right thing?
My shortest shortcut for that is yes and, where I'm just like
improv.
So if a client I would do a lot of logos and graphic design. A client will often come to me and say like, I want this logo to be blue because we're a bank and we have to have blue. Blue is the color of trust. Like that's it. They read that somewhere and they're not wrong. But in my mind, I'm like, every bank is blue. This shouldn't be blue for whatever reason.
Yes, and it won't be blue.
Yes. The move is, yes, the thing that you want is the right thing. You want to be trusted. You want to be authoritative. And we are going to deliver on that by making it orange in this market because of these things, right? So it's like, yes to what you want, yes to your goal, and we're going to go beyond the execution that you have imagined with another execution. Because I don't know, I remember working one time with this absolutely lovely but impossible stakeholder. She was just a wonderful person. I adored her, and it was impossible to please her or to get at what she wanted. And the thing that I eventually realized was, back to fear-based decision-making, people are really scared of purchasing design and specifically scared of being wrong, of making the wrong decision, of buying the wrong thing. I experienced this when we were redoing our kitchen. I was like, I don't know what cabinets to do. Like, how am I supposed to know? You contractor, please tell me. And so I think that a lot of the work that we're doing as creatives, as product developers, as designers is working on that fear, working with that fear, coming alongside someone with empathy and understanding and saying like, yeah, I know this feels really confusing. And a lot of times some of those super early decisions that they make ahead of the process come from, well, I know this, like this is what I know, so I'm going to do this. So I feel like in that case, being able to say like, your instinct is right, your desire is right, your goal is right, let's talk about method and how we get there, can open up that conversation and alleviate the fear, because then they feel heard, understood, and partnered with, and opens up a new solution space.
Gosh, that's so helpful. Because there might be a wrong when it comes to design, but there's lots of rights. And how do you know which one is the most right? And I think in that scary moment, you sort of have to trust process to get you there. That's what Andrew and I are always talking about with people we work with. Like, this will feel a little bit like we're lost in the woods for a bit. And what we're not telling you, dear collaborator, is like Andrew and I are panicking inside because we're like, how is this going to come together? But there are ways to run these processes where you end up with a result everyone's happy with. But hearing you articulate that is really clarifying.
Yeah, I don't think this is always true, but for me, I like to think of process as like a runway if I'm taking a plane trip. Like, process is great. You need to go down the runway. Like, you need to pick up speed. You need to like be moving in a clear path. For me, there is a point in a creative project where process needs to drop away, which is for me the flight. And it's like, that's the free association space. That's the like creative thinking, taking a walk, like petting a dog, like whatever you need to do in order to get to where you are. But you don't just like magically drop into that, right? You need the process to run down the runway, pick up speed, then you get aloft, and then you need process come back down, right? Because if you just stay in that creative space, then you're gonna be lost in the cloud. So you need to actually bring it down, ship product, like make final decisions. You need process the most, I think, at the start and the end. And then you need process to not get lost along the way. But I do think there is a place. I've been in teams where it's only ever all process that really like limits that creative leap place. So I think there's a relationship between process and non-process.
I also feel like, and tell me if this ever gets better, David, that when you run a like 1 week design sprint, at some point, usually Tuesday, you feel utterly lost, depressed. You're like, how are we going to pull this rabbit out of our hat? And yet it's like running a marathon. If you just keep putting one foot in front of another, you finish. And I've never had a sprint end badly. They always work. I would love to eliminate the horrible Tuesday of that from my life, but I just don't know if it's possible.
Or do you need the horrible Tuesday? Is that a requirement?
I feel like you and your audience has absolutely seen the like trench of despair graphic before, which has a bunch of different names, but like it's true of every creative project. There's like you start off like really confident, it's stupid and you're excited. You learn more, then you learn how much you don't know. And that's the trench where it's like, this is going to be terrible. There's no way out. And then you just climb out of it through effort and creativity and just like hard work. And that is true of everything. My daughter is a crafter and she'll pick up a new craft every week, and she'll be knitting or crocheting or like hot gluing, whatever she's doing. There's always every time this like trench. So it's not, it is there is no creative process or endeavor worth doing where you're not going to experience that moment. And it's just, I think why it gets easier is you just become familiar with the feeling. It's like when you exercise and you're like, oh yeah, I know that there's a point where this is supposed to suck. And then I know how great it's going to be after I'm done.
Okay, so I want to switch to talking, big surprise, about AI, but I want to come at it from a little bit of a different direction because you, David, are a game designer. You've produced tabletop games. You've written for Wizards of the Coast. Like you have written Dungeons and Dragons books, which is just wild to me as an enthusiast. And there's kind of a tortured, I think, relationship, maybe even antagonistic between the games community and AI. Before I go there 100%, tell me your game design story in 30 seconds. How did you get into this?
30 seconds. Loved games growing up. As a young father, had no time and nobody to play games with. So the game I played was making games for and by myself. And then I started sharing those online and people liked the ideas. They wound up getting published and that cycle is addictive.
And I feel like you are deep enough in the community and in the industry now that you might be able to shed some light on this. I was at a board game, like craft fair, basically, a few months ago in my neighborhood. And I was going around to the vendors who were all kind of selling their board games that they had made. And a lot of them had these little stickers that said no AI on it. And I asked them and I was like, well, what's this mean? And they said, oh, no AI was used in the art and the copywriting and the production of this whatsoever. And I was like, I wonder what's going on there. And as soon as I like dig into this at all on the internet, I see, oh yeah, it's quite controversial, to consider using AI in any part of certainly the tabletop game industry. And even in the video game industry is very against using AI for textures or for character generation, which is just the opposite of some other sectors. You know, I don't think Facebook's engineers are worried about using AI. And I wonder if you could kind of tell me why those stickers exist. What's going on there?
Yeah. I'll start with tabletop and we can work our way outwards to video games because they're different beasts. Tabletop is not a sector that makes or has a lot of money. The margins are super thin. It comes from a cottage industry because the transit, sort of the jump from being a person who likes games and plays them to making them on tabletop is almost negligible, right?
That was you, basically.
Yeah, that was me, right? Yeah, you can make a card. You can make a game instantly on tabletop. There's no latency. So there's a huge maker community. The makers are all enthusiasts. And because of the offline nature of board games, because of the tactile nature of board games, the art matters a lot. So there has been this holy matrimony between game makers and artists. And increasingly over the past 30-ish years, 40, 50. If you think about board games as we know them, sort of like having a moment in the 70s and then another moment in the 90s and early 2000s, you can think of art as one of the key differentiators of quality of a board game. So if you look at a board game with really great art, that means that that thing is like somebody put a lot of time, a lot of money. There's a lot of confidence and belief in this game. And the art is always made by people. And on RPGs, when it's like Dungeons and Dragons, when it's so much in the imagination, the books that you buy are art pieces. Like people buy them literally for the art. They may not even read them. They're just looking through the pictures. The pictures inspire play. And so there's been this like deep harmony and like really, I mean, all the margins are tiny, but like for the industry, very profitable relationship between game makers and artists. And also it's been a gate. Like the gatekeepers are saying like, it's not a good game because it doesn't have good art. But all that means is when you bring in this idea of just like AI art, all of a sudden, it's just like homewrecker. It's like coming in and completely intersecting that like tight bonded relationship. And so the artists are all against it. And because there's such a tight relationship, you know, that's someone who you've worked with for like 30 years on all of these like Kickstarter passion projects. You're not going to just throw them under the bus, right? So there's this really deep harmony between those two. I think for video games, you know, you start with your modder community and you move outwards. Like video games are different. They're a bigger market, but there's still that like deep passion. The idea of the makers are very close to the object. So I think that the market forces relationships there are a little bit different. I believe that that is a huge part of what is causing this extreme rejection of AI in board games. I will also say the board game audience that is online is very online.
Yes.
And so there's a political aspect to this too, where so there are political narratives to AI. So those get adopted and just like the polarization that we see in all aspects of society applies there as well. And I think then it's sharpened and sort of like refracted through this relational lens. All of which is like interesting to me as a person in board games who also thinks about AI a lot, and maybe sort of like more widely interesting for people in business as I think about, you know, I'm a small business owner, solo operator. What are the relationships that I have in business that are threatened in AI? Like if AI is coming for my lunch now, who else's lunch is it coming for? Who should I think about having their back or like reaching out to them to care for them? Like these business relationships being disrupted by AI are some of the most interesting aspects of the human element to me for all of this.
Yeah, I think that's why that seeing that sticker like spurred so many thoughts for me, because I'm constantly interested in the tension between creativity and AI and how they can coexist. I mean, that could basically be the subtitle of this podcast, Andrew.
Well, and I will say, as a pro AI creative professional, I was hearing Andrew tell the story of seeing the no AI stickers, and I was initially thinking, is that a mantra, a creed that they're espousing, or is it just like a badge of honor, like a made in the USA sticker with a big American flag? Because I use AI as part of my creative process all of the time. I think it makes my creative process better. But whenever I make something from my own brain without AI, I feel like I should like disclaim that. Like I remember I literally like crafted a really well-written email to a client and shared it with Andrew. And I was like, Claude didn't write this. This is all me, baby. And I'm not sure why I feel that need to brag about using my own brain, but I'm going to say it out loud.
Yeah, I think it's both. In that space, it's definitely both, right? It's a badge of honor and a credo. And yeah, I think too, in that space of play, I think there could be something about like a sense of, I don't know. I think this might be a little too cute. I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to stand by it, is like the sense of like purity and nostalgia, right? It's like we're just rolling dice. We're chasing that feeling of like being on a lake house porch playing Risk and like pushing our little guys around before we all go down and jump in the lake, right? And there's something about the bots coming in and wedging themselves between that is a little bit against the ethos. That said, if you look on Kickstarter now, it is predominantly AI projects.
Really?
So yeah, and they're all not great, right? So there's a level here too where it's like, you know, there's this vocal, I don't know if they're a majority or minority, but a loud vocal people saying like, let's look at the human craft. But then, and I think we see this in all kinds of AI stuff. If you look on like any of the apps that like are just being used, like if there's this like all these people are saying, don't use it, we reject it, stand against it. And then there's just a ton of it that people are doing because it's fun or interesting, or they can make $1 or feel like they can make $1. So I don't think it's as monolithic as it appears, but it appears extremely monolithic.
So I'm trying to extrapolate like the larger lesson I could take away from this. One, that the presence of AI crowds out like top tier value signals, maybe. Like it used to be a big deal that you could have amazing art for your project because it meant that you spent enough money on it. It's probably a good game. And that signal now is gone. And that was like a big thing that was helpful in the game industry previously. And it also sounds like when you have both the producers of content and the consumers of content coming close together, like that's an extra potent mix to potentially feel badly about this. And honestly, I feel similar about that in the journalistic community, in that I think the biggest consumers of journalism are other journalists. Beyond, of course, everyone else in America, everyone should support their local journalist. But I think my friends who are most aghast at using AI personally are the people whose day-to-day jobs are spent like producing and consuming writing. And that to me rhymes a bit with going to the tables at this game festival and seeing the creators and game players have the same visceral reaction.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's I think both of those are perfect distillations. One of the analogies I reach for all the time is portrait painters and the arrival of the camera. Until the camera existed, it was very important that you had realistic painters who could paint your portrait, because that's how your grandchildren, great-grandchildren knew what you looked like. And then all of a sudden, that whole thing was gone. Same for landscape painters, whatever. And then what didn't happen is art ceased to exist. What happened is the goalposts of art moved. It became about, okay, but now can I paint a feeling? Now can I paint something that, like, let's do cubism. Let's see how things look in 3 dimensions, or how the light moves across the land with impressionism, right? And post, etc. So I think that my instinct for AI in games, in business, etc., is the more that we try to use AI to replace what is and just do more of the same, that feels self-defeating to me. The question for me is like, what can AI do that hasn't been done yet? Or where can AI take over something so that something new can happen? Like, how can we move the goalposts forward now that this is here? And it's whenever it's just a conversation about like, it's straight up going to replace human labor, one for one. That's it. That's where I kind of shake my head. I'm like, I don't think that's right. Like, I feel like AI is going to either engender new forms of play, or it's going to take away new forms of play and business, or else it's going to take over a segment of that. And then us humans who have been set free from thinking about that will engender new forms of play and business.
That is extremely well said. I'm going to have to think about that. I wanted to ask, how are you using AI currently in your day job?
Yeah. I am like refreshing Claude constantly because I haven't got Claude Design yet. I'm super, super interested to do that because I know that it's going to move my goalposts, right? I think that I use AI in business most as it's the smart intern model, right? When I was working in an office, I would constantly grab whoever was walking by my desk. It didn't matter if they could be like the CEO of the company or the person who started yesterday. I'd be like, look at this. What do you think of this? Like, I just needed somebody to bounce stuff off of. So I use AI as the wall that I throw tennis balls against a lot. I will also often ask it to synthesize or summarize. I was recently speaking with a professor of folklore, actually, which was a really cool conversation. And before the call, had asked it to give me a summary of his bio and sort of like things to be aware of. So prep, I had a series of discovery calls and asked it to synthesize all of that feedback and sort of distill it down to some takeaways. So either generative prep or sort of like reductive distillations, and then thought partner. What I'm not using it a lot for is the actual real creative work itself yet. The one thing I am very eager to do, but haven't quite figured out yet, is like stuff that doesn't replace what I do, but adds to it. So I do a lot of logo design. And I'm still working on setting up the right thing to do like a glitzy logo animation reveal. I have motion designers who I love to partner with that stuff, but sometimes I can't get to them or sometimes the budget just doesn't allow for it. So those things of like, can I get it to do the reveal or the like logo on the swag, which normally I would go into Photoshop and do myself, but it's not really like, I'm not getting paid to do that. That's just to me to prove that it works. So can I prove that it works with AI? Those sort of like toys and sort of like elements of like glimmer and showmanship, I think, are aspects that I'm really eager to use AI for, that I'm still sort of developing that facility with.
Well, I'll ask one final question for you, David Somerville. What is one new or upcoming piece of technology that you're most excited about, or a piece of technology that you most wish for? AI or not?
Yeah. There's a lot, man. There's a lot of cool stuff out there.
Sure is.
I love, I am all of a sudden, like overnight, super uninterested in whatever OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google are doing with AI. Like, I kind of don't care. What I'm interested in is what are all the vibe coders doing? And so I think about like iPhone changed the world, but what really changed the world is like PayPal and Instagram and Uber, right? And it's all the things that were built on the platform that have really affected how we live every day. Wouldn't have happened without the platform, but it's the things on the platform that made it transform society and daily life. And so for me, what I'm genuinely excited about is what the cottage industry, the small creators create that we can't predict now, just using AI that is going to change things. And that's kind of what I'm most excited for technologically coming up. I also really want a steam machine because I think that looks amazing.
Yeah. The gaming machine of the future, at least for the next 2 years.
Yeah. I'll take it.
David, it's been amazing to have you here. It was just as wonderful a conversation.
What a great guest you are, David. Thank you.
I loved being here. You guys, you're doing it. This is the thing right now. And it's so fun to be on it. I love this. Thanks for letting me play.
Well, we will put your website in the show notes because David is amazing to work with. And I hope that you find some new collaborators in the future from us. Product Fridays is back. Thank you, everybody. Like and subscribe wherever you may be. I think our go-to call to action is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We will be spinning up our next class of limericks soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And Phelps is surprised. I just dropped it in. I just put it in. We love the
limericks. I think we should do our patented tagline, and I think David should get to do it last. He should be the last voice of this episode.
You go first.
Okay. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah.